Yes.
Jazakallah khair. Sheikh, we have a question here. How do we approach with non-Muslims the topic of homosexuality and why Muslims do not accept this?
Okay, this obviously is a tricky topic in modern times because in modern times individualism has come to be stressed a lot. And that's not necessarily a bad thing to stress individualism because in many past societies the individual had very little rights and the rights of society triumphed and sometimes that was quite oppressive to individuals. So it is a good thing in modern society that the rights of the individual are championed. It means that each one of us, every one of you, men, women and children, everybody has rights and that's a good thing. Obviously, now to ensure that the rights are translated to every individual, regardless of whatever, regardless of race, regardless of creed, regardless of sexual orientation. So when we are in that situation now, how do we speak about these issues without sounding offensive to the people that we're trying to give da'wah to? First, we should be very clear about what our religion teaches and not to confuse it with what people have said that our religion teaches. You know, there have been great shuyukh over time, and everyone is influenced by his time and place. Nobody is free from this. I'm not free from it. You're not free from it. We're all influenced by the time and place in which we live. Human beings are creatures of their societies. And our shuyukh is no exception to that. You know, you can have great shuyukh in the past, but they gave different rulings, often because they were influenced by their environment. They gave rulings based on what they saw. Certain things appeared to them to be very natural, and they gave rulings accordingly. Some things appeared to be hideous. They gave rulings accordingly. Now, you will find in some of the classical works that somebody says that the punishment for homosexuality is that you take the guy to the top of a cliff and you throw him over and so on. But I don't find any of this to be dependable. In the Quran, the story of Lut alayhi salam is mentioned, and one of their crimes is that they were approaching men with shahwa instead of the women that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created to be their wives. So they were doing something which was contrary to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed the people of Lut for this and the other crimes. They were committing other crimes as well. As mentioned in the Quran, they were committing fahisha in their society, they were blocking the ways and things like that. So Allah destroyed them. But no punishment is mentioned in the Quran for the specific act of homosexuality. There is, to be clear, in the Quran, in Surah An-Nisa, verses number 14 and 15, verses number 15 and 16, that mention two persons committing lewdness. So it says that if two women approach commit lewdness, and it says if two men or two persons, which could be both two men or it could be a man or a woman, because in the Arabic the dual can be two male persons or a male or a female, and if it's two females specifically, then that's a specific form again. So the way it is worded in the Quran, it could refer to homosexuality or not. And if it refers to homosexuality, well, this is an interpretation now, because the Quran does not specifically say that. The interpreters say that this could refer to homosexuality. If it refers to homosexuality, there is no precise had punishment that is mentioned in the case of men. It says, فَآذُوهُمَا. You punish them both, but it doesn't say what is the punishment precisely. In the case of women, it says that they are to be kept in house arrest until Allah opens a different way for them. And then what is the different way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eventually opens for them and so on? This is another interpretive process, linking it to another verse of the Quran from Surah An-Nur, the second ayah. I don't need to go into all of those details now. My conclusion, though, is that whereas in the Quran you have specific punishment, like for cutting for the thief, you cut the hand, and so on, there is nothing so specific about homosexuality. To begin with, homosexuality is not specifically named in the Quran. It is an interpretation that is given to certain verses to say that this refers to homosexuality. Now, when you're dealing with something clear, that's different from dealing with something that is not clear. And we should not confuse the two. We should not, based on our own desires, based on what we would like the Quran to say, we make the unclear clear. If something can mean two ways, we can't make it mean only one way. We have to leave the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as it is. That's how we recite it in the Taraweeh. We can't recite something else. We can't take the tafsir and recite that in Taraweeh, right? So we're very clear that there is the Quran and there is tafsir. Don't confuse the two. Always be clear. This is what, when we say call Allah, we're referring to the words. When we say, call al-mufassirun, the mufassirun say this, we're referring to their words. So we should be very clear on that. The second thing is that we should appreciate that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing all of us and testing us in various ways. We know that to eat pork is prohibited, right? For many Muslims, this makes no difference. What difference does it make that pork is prohibited? Let's say you were growing up in Pakistan. There was no pork to eat. Nobody thought of eating pork. If anybody thought of eating pork, they're gagging before they even eat it, right? Because it's already upsetting to you. You've grown up in that culture where to eat pork is unthinkable. Nobody can pay you to make you eat it. It's not going to go down, right? So to you, it's no test anymore. Is it a challenge? You walk by like a pork store, you think, oh man, I wish that. No, it's not a challenge, right? But now let's say you invite an American to Islam and he's always had his ham and bacon in the morning, whatever these strips and so on they're having, or he's always had the burgers at McDonald's or whatever, and that's what he always enjoyed. Now he decides to become a Muslim. So now, is it a fitna for him? Yes. Because maybe the smell of it will attract him. He always has to remind himself, no, this is haram, I can't do that. So it's a challenge for that person. Now, who is getting more reward for avoiding pork? You, the Pakistani, or our American brother who just embraced Islam? Who's getting more reward? The American brother, right? Because there's something there calling him, he's still avoiding it, he's getting more reward. So some people say they have this inclination. And people are different. People are born different. It is said that, it is known actually, that when the embryo starts out, we came to be familiar with this because we talked about the embryology and the verses of the Quran that says that Allah created you from a nutfa and then alaqa and then mudgha and then so on. So we know that at the alaqa stage and so on, it's undifferentiated. You cannot tell this is either male or female. About 42 days into the pregnancy, then some differentiation starts to occur. And it is mentioned in the hadith that the angels say, ask Allah, Ya Rab, dhakarun aw untha, because the angels themselves at this time they can't tell. So this, which starts out to appear neutral, eventually differentiates either to a male or into a female. And in some cases, the differentiation is not so clear. So you have something like a transgender or a mixed gender. Sometimes you find in the books of fiqh that people are asking, that somebody has both organs, both a male and a female organ. So how does this person regard himself or herself? And the fiqh answer may be quite simple, that see what is more dominant. So the person should regard himself or herself as either a male or female, depending on which of the two organs is more dominant, because the person has both. So you have now a clear idea that this is a reality, a fact that in terms of the physique of a person, some people are clearly masculine, some people are clearly feminine, and some people are somewhere in between, like a mixture of both. And that's no fault of the person, that's just how the person emerged from the womb. We're not talking yet about people who go through sex change operations and so on. That's a different issue. They're changing the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. But in a normal course of events, you have the neutral person, or one might say a hermaphrodite. But that's in terms of physique. It is also possible that mentally you have also a range. So you have some guys who are really macho, very strong, and you see them, right? Maybe the Pathan brothers, but anyway. Okay, forget I said that. And then you have on the other extreme, you can have people who, guys who are not so strong mentally. Maybe they're kind, but maybe they have a kind of motherly instinct as well. They have a sort of feminine side to their thinking. That's possible. So you have a range from being very macho, very masculine, to being very feminine, even among the guys. And among women too, you can have women who are very feminine and women who have a sort of masculine approach to things. And of course, saying masculine and feminine here lose some of its meaning eventually, right? So now we know that there is a sort of range. So what this means then is that some people are being challenged in certain ways, because it's possible that a man may be attracted to another man. And if he's a Muslim, he knows that to be haram. He knows that it's haram to get into any intimate relations with another man. So he has to refrain. Now, we are always thinking in the negative thing. This guy is homosexual, so this is bad. But why don't we think about it in the positive way? This guy is getting more reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he is forced to mingle with all of the other guys, and that's a continual fitna for him. And he is resisting that fitna. And he's getting more reward than I am. You know, I meet my brother, I hug my brother, and it makes no difference to me. It's not a fitna for me. But that same brother being in the gathering with other brothers, maybe it's a continual fitna for him, and he's trying hard to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he is successful at that, and Allah will give him greater reward. So there is a positive side to this that's often overlooked, and I went into some detail to help you to see that positive side. So it's not all negative. In the end, then, we can't say that our religion teaches something different from what it says. Either this way or that way. Let's be straight and to the point. The Quran mentions the story of the people of Lut. The people of Lut were committing acts of homosexuality. Allah destroyed them. But there is no clear verse of the Quran that mentions a specific had punishment for the act of the people of Lut, what we call the act of the people of Lut. And so we cannot introduce that as a specific punishment. In various societies, people may introduce laws, as they do in any society. Britain has laws, right? Canada has laws. The United States of America has laws. Australia has laws. Are all of these laws the same? No. The laws evolve, they change, they respond to various circumstances. People are studying the situation. They try to arrive at what is best. So, in a Muslim society, will there be laws? Yes. In one society after another, there are going to be laws, and the laws might be different from one period to another, depending on circumstances and so on. There are people who are studying this. So jurists have studied the situations over time. They have responded to problems. They have given us their fiqh rulings. But that by itself is not a permanent ruling in Islam. What is the permanent ruling in Islam? That which is said by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in any authentic saying of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That is what becomes our everlasting law. And since there is no specific punishment for homosexuality, that's what we maintain. There is no specific punishment for that. Do we consider it to be a wrong act? Yes, because of the story of the people of Lut. Not only because of that, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instituted marriage as the legal avenue through which we can vent our sexual desires, and you can't get married to a person of the same sex. That's how our legislation is laid down. So if a person is getting together with a person of the same sex for intimate relations, this is obviously contrary to the law of Allah. Do we hate people who are doing this? No. We love them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are the fellow creatures of Allah azza wa jal. Somehow they have been misled or misguided into committing acts which are not according to the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our job is to give them da'wah. If they don't listen, we make more dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them hidayah and make us the reason through which and the cause through which they receive the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we don't hate them. We hate the act itself, but the people we love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is feeding them still, right? And Allah is giving them the air to breathe and so on. So Allah has a certain basic love for them, even though the Quran says, أَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْكَافِرِينَ and لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ and so on. But there's a certain basic consideration for them, and we have the same consideration for them. So in terms of human rights, in our society, they will have human rights like everybody else. But what they do behind their closed doors, that's between them and God. But God's law says that what we are talking about here is wrong. And if they do that wrong, they have to face it. So some say, no, but we cannot help it. We say, well, how do you mean you cannot help it? This is the continual call of the shaitan. Shaitan tells the child molester, you cannot help yourself, you have to molest children. You see the show Criminal Minds? Is it shown here, Criminal Minds? So some people have some criminal mind, they cannot help themselves, they have to go murder the next victim and the next victim and the next victim. So they say they cannot help themselves. What do we say? You should be able to help yourself. Stop yourself. Right? Go to the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do what is right. Just because you have an inner desire, you have to commit crime, doesn't mean that you have to commit crime. You can stop yourself. All right?